right, it's Ryan Spelton. Welcome to episode 2 of the One Man's Journey podcast. I've got Juan Valdez here, who is an amazing social media presence, and I am super excited to get to know him a little bit more on a one-to-one basis here. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself and kind of tell us a little bit about what he's got going on in life and what goals he's got and all of that stuff. So Juan, take it away and feel free to roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, first of all, thank you for the invitation, right? It was amazing that you even asked. I'm like, all right, great, let's do this, right? So, like Ryan said, my name is JuanManuel Valdez. You could call me Juan, and I'm here out of Central Florida. First of all, I'm a father, husband, and I advocate for a few things on a personal level to whoever asks. So it's I should be more loud about it, I guess. And it's epilepsy and autism, just because it's part of my life. So that's a great thing. And then on the other side, I'm in the real estate industry. I'm a realtor here in Kissimmee, Florida, and more in the investor side. I do help families as well, and I'm a loan signing agent, and just a few. We all wear different hats. Um, so that's a little bit about me, and I just think it's great that you have this platform and what you're doing on Facebook with the One's Man Journey. Like the vision is great, right? So it's definitely kudos to you for even doing this, because not a lot of people are.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely an important thing for men to realize, like, we're not alone, right? Like
yeah,
there's so many of us out there, right? About half the world actually.
yeah,
And we
yeah, right.
we were talking talking a little bit beforehand, and just thinking about how we both grew up, really, like, is in
Mm,
that, like, that macho man, like, we don't show
yeah,
emotion. We deal with things ourselves, and that's I'm from a small town in Minnesota, and I'm sure it's very similar to the Latino culture in that way, is where it's
yeah,
like you go to work, you come home, and you do your work, and that's what's expected. And so
yeah, yeah.
finding those
Pretty much,
emotions can be difficult. Yeah, for sure.
pretty
Um,
much.
yeah, and I've heard that before in the Latino culture as well. We do have a home in Puerto Rico, so we travel back and forth
Okay.
there quite a bit, and so we see this, and it's really interesting. But I have seen a movement for it, especially in our generation, to get back to it, to get to understand that, like, yeah, we're people too, right? And we had this. You talked about a situation. I'll let you tell the story from the other day. Um, where you
Oh,
recognize that, and
yeah. So I was literally just taking a break from my work day. I mostly work from home, and I was just in the algorithm of TikTok. It was just showing me a lot of emotional motivational videos, and literally that's all it was, for some odd reason. And it was just reminding me that even though I'm doing the best I can still do a lot better. And it's not to put pressure on ourselves. It's like we as people, men, women, we have so much potential that sometimes we think that the 100% that we're doing is really enough, and it's really not. And that can be in so many different ways, not just work, like working on self-development, on mental health, on reaching out to other people that might be um, struggling with whatever, right? Sending personal messages that people you've never met, but they're going through a hard time. So it's yeah, it was a great moment of tear shed. While I was just on my bed relaxing for a few minutes. I'm like, you know what? Let me just decompress, and I ended up crying.
yeah,
I really did. It was just like, okay, I
and
needed this.
that just shows, like,
Yeah.
that's when that stuff kind of creeps in, right? Like, when you least expect it
Mm,
to, when you're just thinking that this is the time, I'm just going to take a break, I'm not going to think about anything, and really, like, that's when it comes in. And I've seen you're saying that your TikTok feed was that day was all motivational stuff,
yeah.
and that's awesome. But that's the algorithm, like we said, right? It's like figuring out what you need and figuring out what you want at that time. And that's just, it's really interesting that, I always say the algorithm knows us better than ourselves. But
Right.
I've had so many of those moments, and you touched on one thing there with talking about our potential, right? And
Mm,
living in our potential. And so that's one thing that I've been extremely focused on lately, is like, anytime I bring up trouble or problems to people, they're like, "Oh, but you've got so much potential. Don't worry about it. You'll get through it, and you're strong, and you'll come out the other side with, you're growing with potential. You're a good looking guy. You've got a lot going for you. You've got so much potential." And I'm just like, I don't want to live in the damn potential anymore. Like, I want to do the damn thing. Like,
exactly.
like I
Yeah.
don't want to look back and the graveyards are full of people that had potential that didn't act on it. And so, like, it's such a huge thing to just get outside of potential and just get to doing.
And people don't realize that about doing, and it's almost a little weird that you mentioned that in a good way. There's a realtor. His name is Damien, and he just one of his good friends passed away, and I haven't met him personally. I know him through my brokerage, and he posted just like a sympathy type post, right, remembering his friend. And um, I usually don't go into other people's profiles. That's not my thing. But something told me at that moment, like, go see who, I believe her name is Jessica Lee. Jessica Lee. And I literally spent about 15, 20 minutes seeing her videos and what she has accomplished. And I'm like, man, she lived an amazing life just because she decided to up her game and go past that living in the potential part. And it was just amazing. I'm like, man. So and that's what I wanted to mention off of that, because it was just like I said, it was kind of weird that you brought that up. And it was like 2 or 3 days ago that she passed away, but that I saw that post, right? um, but yeah, it's, don't live in your potential, go past it. um, I've
And then
never Go ahead, sorry.
go ahead. I was gonna say, the
Well,
other
no,
side of that too is, we got to realize what we have accomplished, right? And we got to look back and
yes.
figure out, like, like what you just said, like, took us full circle there, right? It took us from we need to live outside of our potential and just start doing, to, if our life was a video, what would we look back and go, man, we accomplished a lot? Because I think we both
Yes.
would. I think, and I know I
Yeah.
would, speaking for myself, like, looking back and going, even in the times it didn't feel like you were doing that much, and it didn't feel like you were accomplishing much, and you look back and you go, man, I really did. And especially with you being a father, and going through, with what you've been through just as a father, I think
Mhm.
that's extremely important for you to know. And I'd love
Yeah.
for you to hear a little bit more about, your challenges and what you've gone through as a dad.
Yeah, so I have three sons. My oldest is 22, and then my middle son turned 15 yesterday,
Happy
and
birthday.
my thank you. And then my youngest is turning 14 in like 2 weeks, the 8th of October, and the oldest is in November. So it's literally back to back until next year sometime, on birthdays and celebrations. But it's, since each of them are are so different in age, well, like the oldest to compared to the youngest, it's, I live on a constant journey on guiding them, right, in their different aspect, because my oldest is a young man, and I want him to make sure that he can live his best life, not only uh, being healthy, mentally strong, all that great stuff, right? But also know that these next 10 years, he can really just be himself, work, and do whatever he wants after that. I never had that guidance. My parents were great, you know, like everybody has either their great parents or great parents that tried to guide them as best as possible, but they didn't have the knowledge that we have now, right? Because things change. So I'm trying. My purpose is to break that mold and not grow how I grew up. That would be so unfair to all three of them, right? So, and it's communication with three different minds, which is difficult. And and it's just teaching them that way. I was on a coaching call like 2 weeks ago with my coach, and he's like, I want you to write a 5-year plan on what you want for each of your family members, including my wife. And I did that for my sons, and I was just like, man, like I like these goals, and they're easy to accomplish. And then for my other two sons, so my oldest is Sean, Troy, and Lawrence, and um, their goals are different, somewhat the same, but with different other little challenges with them. Um, they're on the autism spectrum, and it's that alone I am grateful for. I would not change that for the world. Um, it's they are just so intelligent and creative, and talk like older people. It's just really amazing. So it's creating that same thing I'm doing with my eldest, putting a 5-year plan with them as well, so they can go along their journey, right? And it's really, it's honestly, it's difficult. Parenting is not easy at all, but it's the most rewarding thing. I had a good friend of mine ask me, he's like, "What's it like being a dad?" And I'm like, "I can't explain it. It's rewarding, but I just can't explain it." He goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "When you become a parent, if you ever choose to become a parent, then you'll know what I'm talking about, because people will not understand that mental emotion, internal like that's the way I feel about it, right? People can have their own opinions of what I'm saying, but um, the feeling is fulfilling. Um, it's
They're a
fulfilled
part of, like,
everything.
physically a part of you, like
They
that.
are,
And
yeah.
I can't speak as a parent, but I was a kid once, and I do have a great dad, so I can I can speak a little bit from the other side, right?
Yeah, no, no,
Feel
yeah,
like we all.
no, yeah, 100%. We could speak. We can definitely speak from the other side, because we knew how our parents raised us, right? And it's you could definitely speak from that side as well. I could speak from that side as well. So it's there's a lot of challenges, right? And it's a lot of emotions. And for me, um, I grew up more of a on a how can I put this? It was more a judgmental and victim mindset as I was growing up, just because every time I would have a seizure, people would judge me, right? Even my closest friends, even though they didn't like notice it, I knew it. Um, and then that plays with your mind, like it's all psychological. And as you're growing up, you don't know that you're bringing that with you as you grow up, and that messes with you on a different level. And then as you grow up, you also start, and this is what's the word? Like you don't mean to do it, but you also put yourself kind of like in a victim mentality, because nobody tells you what that is. What's a victim mentality, and how do you like get that away from you, right? So it's I've mentally, have I struggled? 100%, yeah. And it's part of it. And what got me out of that was um, just me focusing more on um, motivational things. The person that really got me out of it was Steve Harvey. Like I used to follow because Family Feud, right? Funny, it's like I love that show, but when he started doing those motivational clips, probably like 7, 8 years ago, something like that, it just popped up on my YouTube feed, and something about the tonality, what he was saying, it just resonated with me. And I would literally watch maybe like 8 to 10 of those mini clips every single day, even if they were the same ones. Um, I would just watch it, and my wife would be like, "Are you watching Steve Harvey again?" I'm like, "Yeah, leave me alone." um, just because I was going through such a dark time, um, about almost 9 years ago now. And it's, everybody deals with depression, in one way or the other, right? And my wife, she's my rock. It's, if it wasn't for her, um, we wouldn't be having this conversation probably. But the um, like a major event that happened, one of my sisters passed away, October 28th, coming up 9 years. So that's difficult. Like, everybody has something in common, and that's, we all have blood, we all breathe, and we all have people that we love that go away, right? That pass away. I personally don't see it as they're gone. I choose to believe that their energy, their spirit, whatever the person believes in, right, is still here, period. So that was difficult within itself. So like, it was probably maybe like 2 years after, um, her physical presence left this earth. The the video started popping up, and all she wanted, I remember this, all she wanted was, I want my nephews to like grow up happy and be the best. So that particular thought plays in my mind every single day, right? So it's kind of like, um, paying her honor, right? In that sense, if that makes,
Yeah.
if that even makes sense. Um, so, and it's like, all right, that's what she wanted for my sons. Like, I didn't ask her to have that emotion, that feeling, whatever, while she was here, but um, it's that Steve Harvey led the way to my change, right? And I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know I'm going to shake his hand in one way or the other. I will, um, just because he indirectly changed my life. And because of him, that's when I started, seeing other motivational speakers like T.D. Jakes, Tony Robbins. I actually met Tony Robbins in 2002, but like, um, that's why I kept on watching, Eric Thomas, all these people, right? Like, that are mainstream, but have a purpose. And that's what really changed me. Um, that Steve Harvey rewired my brain. It's pretty amazing when you don't know somebody, but like, their messages resonate with you. And it's, what can I do to make it better for everybody within my circle, right? In this case, my sons and my wife.
And
Um,
that's the thing with that. Obviously you touched on a couple different points, and I'm excited to unpack a couple of them there. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, when you talk about Steve Harvey rewiring your brain, I want to push that back a little bit for you and say you rewired your own brain, and Steve
yeah.
Harvey's words just were there to help that along. And so it's really interesting to watch. I mean, because if you're saying Steve Harvey rewired your brain, what you're really saying is like, because that could come from Family Feud, that could come from anything
Yeah,
that he's done, right? And
yeah, yeah.
when you brought that up, it's like it's so interesting to see the transition of how certain people can be one thing for us at one point in time, where like he was your comedic relief watching Family Feud, and that was something that you probably did with your family, and like that, like you
Mm,
just enjoyed watching that stuff with your family.
yeah,
And then he became this entire different person for you, an entirely different model, entirely different like aura, right?
yeah.
A completely different person, really, when it
Like,
comes down to it. And so
like
now you've
complete
got
360.
like you've got two people, or one person that is two different people for you in the same regard, and we carry that through. Like, none of us recognize that on a daily basis of like what we could be for somebody else, or what they could be for us if we just looked at them differently. And
Yeah.
so that's such a huge thing. And you touched on the victim mentality, and this is all part of that victim mentality. And
Mm,
the victim mentality, when you said that, like alarms start going off in my head, because it's something I've explored so deeply that
yeah,
like it's sickening, really. Like, it's been it's been a lot of exploration for that for me. So I've gone really
yeah,
deep on the victim mentality, and now I can pick up on it within 30 seconds, 10 seconds of talking with someone.
yeah.
And it's something that, you know if you're looking for one thing, you're going to find it. If you're looking for
Mm,
another thing, you're also going to find that, right? It's like when you jump on the internet and you do an internet search, and I'm not going to say a specific one, but you do an internet
yeah.
search and you find what you're looking for. Like, I've had these symptoms. Well, it could be this.
Yeah.
WebMD is the greatest victim mentality piece of equipment ever created.
Wow. You know what? Yeah, you're right. I never thought about it that way. Like, and I obviously I've been on MD like so like WebMD so many times, but you're absolutely right. It can create that.
Like,
Uh,
it's super helpful, but if you're looking
it
for
is.
something, you're gonna find it, and that's just the way it is. Like, you know, it's the same thing, you
Very.
know, not to dive into it or, you know, and I'm not going to, we're gonna stay right here, but like politics, right wing, left wing, doesn't matter which way you are, but if you're searching for that answer, you're going to find it because someone else put that information out there. So, you know,
Hmm.
when you said that, it was just that, going back to the Steve Harvey thing, but like, we can all be different people for different people, and we all
Yeah.
are different people for different people. And
Yes.
so you may, in one person's eyes, you may be the worst person in the world because you didn't fall into line with what they needed or
Exactly.
what they were asking you to do. And then the other side is someone else, you're the greatest person in the world because you changed their life with by saying one thing. And so like that, like that's part of the power thing of taking back our power as humans is if you don't think you have power, you have the power to destroy someone's life, and you have the power to completely improve someone's
Mm,
life, whether you recognize it or not.
yeah.
And you've done both.
Yeah.
Like every single one of us has done both, and we don't know, and maybe we do know about some of it, but really, like, that's where it comes in. And so, you know, carrying that into being a dad, I think with you just having the awareness of that, it creates
Mm,
an entirely different environment for your children. And I think that's fantastic.
yeah. Because it's like you said, you know, it's about looking for something. You could find it. You can pretty much find anything nowadays. And I just don't. You know, I want my sons to be men that are compassionate and vulnerable, right? To have that emotional intelligence because they're already smart. Like they don't need the intelligence. Like they
Right.
they already have it. But it's knowing when to ask questions about certain things, right? And I just that's a a goal my wife and I share. So it's we're both on the same page because even when we want to talk to our significant others, right? Sometimes like, do we really want to say this?
Mhm.
So we even question ourselves when we want to talk to our own spouses, right? Um, and it's like just say something, and you know it's difficult. It is, you know, I have a few friends on social media, and one of them sometimes complains about, for instance, in this case, money, right? Like needs more money. And he made a post, something about $1 million or something like that. And I'm like, go get yourself $1 million. I'm like, go become a millionaire. And he's like, Juan, I hate you. And I'm like, then unfollow me. And he goes, I really hate you. But the point, like I used to work at Disney, so that's where I met him. But the point is, like, there's certain people that I keep in contact because me personally, I can see where they can go, but they don't see it. So I throw these little helpful jabs at them to like the information is there. I'm not a wealthy person, but I've surrounded myself around a lot of wealthy people. So it's helped me also change my mind in that aspect, right? So that's also important. And that's what I try to do. And just it's I like seeing people grow. I like seeing them succeed. And if I can help one person, I did that, right? And and that's where, you know, like my vision for real estate is out there, that it scares me, and that's a good thing. Um, but but yeah, man, um, it's it's good seeing their kind of happy negative reactions
Right.
because they're like, yeah, Juan, you're right.
Yeah. No, that's exactly, like, you're helping them you know, and I've done it while you're speaking here, and I think I pick up on where you go, like you nod and agree, and you're like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Like even
Yeah.
just this back and forth conversations, we're helping each other realize just small little things about ourselves that we didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And so enough of those small things that add up create that, like, okay, I can take one step, right?
Yeah.
And you know, looking back into my journey, that's like I pinpoint the day that I quit drinking as like the first step, but really it was before that, because all of those things that were adding up in between there of
Mm,
like, this isn't serving me, this isn't serving me, this isn't serving, like I knew that, you know, 8 years ago. I
mm,
didn't, you know, so it's not like the pivotal moment was the day I quit drinking. It was an
yeah.
addition of all of those things adding up. And so if you can just, you know, I think that's fantastic of just like those quick little comments, and especially if you get a response like
Yeah.
that, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it
He's
takes
like,
me
I
to a
hate you.
video that I saw of Eddie Murphy, and you know, I think he's in his Coming to America garb, because I think they did the Coming to America too. And while he
Yeah.
was filming that, it's him walking. He goes 75 years or 75 summers. You only get 75
Yes.
summers.
I saw
And
that.
man, go back to that video and just look at the comments, and just to watch and to see all of the people that respond very similar to what your friend just responded with,
Mm,
like, I hate you. Like they respond with, this is coming from a guy who's super wealthy. And if you go back through Eddie Murphy's life, like
you, he wasn't
go
super
go
wealthy.
go to where Eddie came from, because it's not what you think. Like Coming
Yeah.
to America was like his way of showing like, this is how I did it.
Yeah.
And like he obviously he wasn't a prince from you know, across
What
the
was it?
water,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but in his life,
Zamunda.
yeah, Zamunda, that's right, yeah,
Zamunda.
Zamunda, yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
movie gets me every time,
It's serious.
um but you know, like obviously he wasn't a prince, but and he didn't come from wealth and then go into poverty and then fight his way out. But the poverty to riches story was really a symbolism for his life of like, I don't want to be handed stuff, I want to work for it, and he
Hmm.
worked his butt off for it. And so to see those comments is just they're ignorant comments of like, they just haven't been awakened yet to what's possible. And we were all there at one point, right? We just had to find what is
Yeah.
possible, and that's what we're applying now.
100%. And that also applies to, um, and then like what you just said about the comments, a lot of them might be young, right? In their late teens, early
Let's hope.
20s. Huh?
Let's hope
Yeah.
that that's the case, right?
Yeah, right. No, but a lot of them are adults, right? That never got out of their box, out of that comfort zone. And they're always going to stay there, right? Because it's really taking the action to what you want to do. 1% a day. That's it. Just 1% a day. Um, and that's something that I used to teach when I trained at Disney. It's 1% a day. You'll get better 1% a day. Um, and man, Disney changed my life. But it's nobody gets, from one day to the other. It just doesn't happen. It accumulates. It's kind of like Jim Carrey. He wrote himself a check for $10 million and left it in his wallet for 10 years, and he got his $10 million, right? So after I think it was after the first Ace Ventura,
Was it,
and
yeah, either Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber, one of the two. He signed
one of
that
them,
big,
yeah,
yeah.
it's one of them, and that's how much he got paid, right? Because he worked for it, right? Like you said, and we should all kind of just like follow the breadcrumbs backwards to these ultra successful people to see where they actually came from, because everybody's just seeing the now person, right?
Well, and
Um,
I think that, you know, following the breadcrumbs back is extremely important. Like you said, like that's a good way to put it, right? Follow the breadcrumbs back to the beginning. Um, for me in this scenario, like it's funny because you say the ultra successful, and we view them as ultra successful, and the majority of the population views them as ultra successful, and a lot of those guys would tell you like, I still feel like an average dude,
mhm.
like
Yeah.
in their core. So
Yes.
and that's where like this has been a, like, honestly, the concept of one man's journey has been a long thought of process of like, I'm going to do this at some point, or and I just never really formulated the concept.
Mm.
And you say that there's turning points in life when people pass, and my grandma passed away, and I created this like 2 days later, and it was
Okay.
just like, I can't, like seeing her, passing on was like, she would have wanted me to just do this thing, right?
Mm,
And so sometimes we just have to take those small things that may or may not be like 100% true, but we're just like, let's just run with it,
yeah.
and it works out to push it in that direction and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, following the breadcrumbs back and really it's just like acknowledging that you have come far, but you
Mm,
still have a long way to go because
yeah.
we've all made it through every single thing we've gone through.
Yep.
And so
That's
you can look back and look and go, man, all of these challenges that we've had, I'm still here. And so you get to say that every single day. And so as
oh
long as you're here, you might as well be doing something awesome, right? So
yes.
um, it's great. I really want to hear a little bit more about your journey with epilepsy because I know that that's something that's important for you, and I want to hear
Yeah.
like your advocacy piece of that, of like what we can do to help with anything that you're focused on right now or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. No. So my thing was that, like I said, I grew up with that victim mentality of I'm epileptic. Like I probably won't be able to do stuff. Uh, things. Like the negative part of it, right? So it's not easy because mine, even though they're controlled for now, I never know when I'm going to have one. So but in my mind, I'm at peace now. I think you could say because I've gone from that mentality shift where I have to be careful of everything of what I do to it's just part of it. That's just part of my life. So now the way I view epilepsy is I view it as a gift. It's strange to hear. Even my own doctor was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well," and I told her, and I'm like, "Well, think about it, Kristen. And you're here to treat epilepsy, but nobody talks about the mental health aspect of epilepsy. You don't hear it. You just hear of what you can do to change yourself, medicine, exercise, all that stuff. But they don't focus, and I have yet to meet a doctor to focus on how are you doing emotionally, right? And that applies to everybody under the umbrella of epilepsy. Um, so things that I did to change myself is I cut out coffee, I cut out dairy, I still cheat, with a piece of cheese here and there. Don't get me wrong, but I don't consume it as often. Um, those bread I took out, and like mind you, the coffee part, and I'll tell you why I cut these things out. The coffee I was drinking like 2 cups a day, probably like almost every single day of the week. So it's like 12 to 14 cups of coffee. That's a lot, right? And not like little glasses, like iced, like large
Yeah.
glasses. And I cut that out. And it turns out, because I also suffered from migraines. So it turns out that this was a last year journey that I took so very recently. Last year, around like February, March, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to cut a cold turkey and I'm going to start exercising in the garage and cut things out, cut things away. And I had migraines every single day. The migraines where like you have to like cover yourself with a pillow and earplugs, horrible. And I cut out the those items and a few other. Oh, and white sugar, I took that out. And at that point, I was weighing like I don't know, like 220, something like that. And um, when you take out coffee and sugar, you go through withdrawal. So you're still having migraines throughout like another 5 or 7 days.
Yeah.
Um, and that's horrible. But it also turns out dairy wasn't good for me. I'm not lactose intolerant, but how convenient or how ironic, I don't know what word you want to use, is it that when I took out all those things, my seizures dramatically dropped, right? So it goes to show you like your diet plays a lot to do with your internal self, right? So that was like a major thing that I did, and that took months. It took months, and I was just really adamant. 5 a.m. every single morning, wake up, do like 15 minutes of walking the treadmill, lift a little weights, push-ups, whatever, right? Not nothing like hardcore exercising, like nothing hardcore. And and I dropped down to like 185, 187, and I stay between like the 185, 190 range. So I dropped down 30 pounds. My migraines are gone. Like I don't have those anymore. And the next time I saw my doctor in November of last year, she's like, "Who is this?" Because I also cut off my hair. That was another um, thing that I was very, I don't know how you want to say it, but I did not like my hair ever, like since I was a child. And everybody's like, "No, you have nice hair," and that's why I kept it. So last year, after I started working out, I went to the barber with my boys, and I'm like, "JC, cut off my hair." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Shave off my hair." He's like, "For real? Like you just want like a one?" I'm like, "No, no hair." And he goes, "Juan, I've been cutting your hair for 6 years. You're like, I'm not gonna have your business." And I'm like, "Do it." And man, was that relieving? Like mentally, just that part was amazing. So it's like I took the negative, turned it into a positive, and now I'm more of a okay, you have something going on, whatever the condition may be, right? In this case, we're talking about epilepsy. Okay, you have epilepsy, but you can still lead a normal life, right? This was a brand new transition for me within the past 2 years, right? So it's those are just like some of the on the health side, and then on the mental side, it was reading more books, right? Like getting, I have the 7 levels of communication right next to me. Like I have a whole library, man, literally, and it's getting my mind right and just putting those pieces together. And from last year, February, March, that time frame to now, it's it's been amazing, right? And this has been going on for like the health aspect of what I've done to change. Um, that was from last year, but what really changed me was the way I was treated as an equal at Disney. Disney by far was my best W-2 employer I've ever had. I got slapped so hard with humbleness in a good way, um, that it's I never got judged, is what it was. I used to make a great salary when we used to live in Miami. I worked for Cisco Systems, and I was a sales manager for IT infrastructure. So we used to travel to the Caribbean and meet with the C-level executives and what they needed and blah blah blah. And all of that was great, but I had hardly any family time. That hurt, period. But when I went to Disney and I noticed that everybody was just an employee and everybody just genuinely cared, at least in my location that I worked at, it changed my mind. And that journey started back in 2014. So in its totality, right, the humbleness I got from Disney and the health journey that I started last year, it opened up, right? And it's nobody made fun of me. My managers at Disney, like, they're like, "Juan, are you sure you're supposed to be here today? Like, you had a seizure, a couple of days ago." I'm cool. It's training day. Let's go. And it was that it was in I wasn't a regular trainer. I didn't serve pixie dust, any of that. I was like, this is what's going to happen. I'm more of a realistic type of person, just very straightforward. So it was a lot, man. The journey itself, like changing like my mind aspect and dealing with epilepsy is really the last 10 years of my life, which is a short period of time if you think about it. I'm 43, and it's really looking into yourself which we always should always do, but we know we never do. We hardly ever do. And those little things is more like, um, that's why I kind of get frustrated with people that I know that really don't have any type of struggle whatsoever, and they still complain. And that's when I talk to them, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And that's what they tell me. And I never bring up my epilepsy in any conversation, because if I put that first, it's gonna like negate everything that I did in past 10 years. So,
Go
it,
into that a little. I want to hear.
so okay, so if I go into a conversation with somebody and compare it to my epilepsy, I am defining myself as a person with epilepsy. Epilepsy being the forefront of me, right? Not who you're seeing. But if I'm talking to somebody and tell them different steps that I've done to change myself, like reading, exercising, I'm not focusing on the epilepsy part. I'm aware of my condition, right? Which is important. We all have to be aware of our limitations and all that good stuff. But if I put my condition in front of me, in my mind, right, it's making it more important. And that shouldn't be the case. Health wise, it's one of the most important things. But and this is the way I think about it, and people are like, but how can you do that? Right? Some people ask me like, wait, Juan, you're in real estate and you don't drive? I barely drive, right? It's either my wife or my eldest son. I Uber. Like, I find a way. Um, Even though I have permission to drive, um, I don't, because the last one I had was in April. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a nice 7, 8 month break just to look at myself, right? Like how
Yeah.
my health is doing. So it's, other agents, they're like, wait, how do you like meet people? I'm like, I find a way. Like, you have to find a way. So it's, and the person who's talking to you now would have been completely different 10 years like backwards, right?
Yeah.
Like following the breadcrumbs. It's not the same person. So
The theme
it's,
I'm getting as to why you are here too, and I never like to summarize everything with one statement, but this has ranked true through every statement that you've made, or everything that you've talked about, and it's,
mm,
you do the hard things and you choose to do the hard things so that the other things can become easier.
a
And
hundred
so
percent.
you chose to
Yeah.
cut those things out of your diet that you could very easily get. You chose to, you know, you chose to be an advocate for autism when you could just be silent about it like everybody else. You're choosing to teach your children that the world is hard, but you can still be compassionate and still have the go-getter attitude. And you choose to take an Uber to a buyer's agent appointment because it results in a sale. Like, honestly, this is a tremendous episode, and I really hope people like stayed this long to get the whole value, because
Yeah,
because
right.
because really, like, honestly, man, this has been fantastic speaking with you, and learning who you are, and understanding,
Yeah.
like, I mean, if I'm putting words on it, it's motivational, it's inspirational. Like, you're a one of a kind dude, and I
Um,
hope that you recognize that.
and I appreciate that, and then later on another other episode, or when we finally meet face to face or on a Zoom, whatever, right? We'll go into like my actual vision, right? Like what that's about. And like, I don't share that with anybody. Like, I share it with people that like align with what I'm trying to do, right? But it's it's been a very long journey. And it's always a long journey. Some people don't get that. um but I don't. What's that saying? There's a saying called the man, it completely like disappeared, but when you're expecting something in the future and you're kind of just like holding off, delayed gratification, right? So it's um I never knew about that until recently. But anyways, it's thank you for having me on call. It's and just listening, right? But it's I'm here to just make a different change,
Yeah,
um, to whoever, right? And whoever listens to this, like you said, I hope they hear what we both said, because it was, man, I like where you're going with this, Ryan. I really do.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and so I appreciate your time, Juan. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your input. I appreciate you as a person, and I would love to have you back on another round here. And so I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll get in touch and jump that on. But so thank you guys, everyone, for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.